Hello everyone, hope you're having a fantastic Monday so far, and welcome back to the Waiver Wire show, your weekly information on one undrafted Pokemon and their potential usage in a draft league format. I'm your host Strompfel, and this week we're wasting no time and going straight to the results from last week. So it looks like the cute koala bear Komala came out on top. So strap up your seatbelts and...
Hey Strompf!
Bill, what the hell are you doing? I'm trying to record here, man.
I heard Kamala, so I thought you were talking about me. But, you know Kamala was drafted, right?
Wait, are you sure about that?
Yeah, Gator picked it, like, 7th round or something?
Okay, so it seems like we have encountered some minor technical difficulties. I'll be right back. If you don't drop Komala right this second, I will murder. No, but jokes aside, I put Komala on the poll last week and it turned out it was drafted, so I'm really sorry about that. That leaves us with no winner, unfortunately, so we have to talk about the Pokemon that came second place instead. So once again, strap up your seatbelts and get your first aid kit ready, because today we're talking about a shark that has been cut in half, Sharpedo. Okay, so judging by Sharpedo's stats, we can see that Sharpedo is a very offensively based Pokemon. It has base 70 HP, which is actually not bad. 120 base attack and 95 base special attack, which is really good. 95 speed, which is workable, and then garbage defenses at 40. Sharpedo will hit you hard, but even if you poke it with a stick, it will explode into a million pieces. Sharpedo is a dark and water dual type, which is in my opinion very good. Dark is one of the best offensive typings on its own, and couple this with having the option of having a water stab as well, you got yourself a Pokemon that has very limited switch-ins. The combination of water and dark hits almost everything at least neutrally. In fact, there's only 32 out of 802 Pokemon that can resist both, and 7 of these aren't even fully evolved. Defensively, Water and Dark isn't that bad, to be honest. It has weaknesses of course, but it can resist some of the best offensive typings in the game, such as Fire, Ice, Dark and Ghost. Dark also gives it a immunity to Psychic, which is good for any draft team. If you have multiple immunities on a team, your opponent will have a harder time preparing for you and cannot just spam a certain move, such as Psychic or Psyshock in this case. Okay, so now since you know a little bit more about Sharpedo's stats and typing, we can start talking about why it maybe should be picked up. To begin with, Sharpedo is very offensively scary for your opponent, since it has high attack and special attack, with both stab and coverage options on both sides. This makes it a guessing game for your opponent when they try and find switch-ins. Is he physical? Is he special? Is he mixed? Should I stay in? Should I switch out? Oh, I know, I can just click forfeit. Sharpedo's stats really lets its offensive typing shine, and this is a ticking time bomb for your opponent that can explode and take out an entire team at any minute. Now, remember what I said 2 seconds ago about Sharpedo being a nuke? Well, we haven't even gone to the best part yet. Sharpedo's ability Speed Boost. Speed Boost will raise your speed every turn and make this shark fast as all f***. This makes Sharpedo an amazing sweeper, since it has the ability to outspeed anything with its ability, and hits very hard with stab attacks and coverage options. Now, to be honest, I couldn't really pick a last pro, so I just put Move Pull as the last one. Sharpedo has many options when it comes to surprise moves. People usually expect Sharpedo to have only offensive moves, but it has other options such as Taunt to shut down passive mons, or Destiny Bonds to make your opponent's Pokemon go down with you. But even an offensive monster such as Sharpedo has its flaws, and these flaws are probably the reason why it's not drafted. Okay, so the first problem of course is that Sharpedo has no defense. It will probably die to anything your opponent throws at you. It generally surprises me that Sharpedo doesn't get one-shotted even by just entering on hazards. It's really that frail. If your opponent touches you, the explosion will be huge. But hopefully you'll not need to take an attack since you're extremely fast, right? False. Pokemon has this evil thing called priority, which will strike first no matter how much speed you have. This becomes a problem for our shark friend here, since priority attacks easily shuts it down since it's so frail. And it doesn't help that Mach Punch and Vacuum Wave, two of the more common priority attacks, is super effective against Sharpedo and will just one-shot it depending on which Pokemon that uses it. Sharpedo does however get its own form of priority in Aqua Jet, which will probably strike your opponent first, but that will lead us into the final con with Sharpedo. Sharpedo and many other Pokemon suffers from this syndrome called 4 move slot syndrome. Don't worry, it won't kill our shark friend, but it will hinder him quite a bit. Basically, Sharpedo has many options when it comes to offensive coverage, but it usually won't be able to pick more than 3. This is because Sharpedo needs to give up 1 move slot to protect in order to ensure the first speed boost. After that, it's just a pick and shoot with the other 3 slots, but most of the time you will lose coverage for at least 1 Pokemon on your opponent's team and therefore your sweep might be over. This makes it even harder to try and squeeze in Aqua Jet in the moveset, since you lose out on a lot of power. Of course, these cons doesn't make Sharpedo unviable in draft format, it's still really good. So let us see what we can do with it on Pokemon Showdown. Alright, so the first sample set with Sharpedo is the Fiscally Offensive Set. It's a very simple concept. Sweep with it when you get the opportunity. The moves are Waterfall and Crunch for stab, you got the Protect of course to ensure the speed boost, and then I decided on Psychic Fangs as the last attack. This is a good move if you're facing off against a fighting type for example, or a poison grass type. Both of them will drop if you maybe have damaged them a little bit earlier in the match. Sharpedo is a really good user of the item Life Orb, since it gives you the ability to change up moves, it increases the damage output, and the quote-unquote drawback of losing health isn't really that big of a deal since you're dying to any attack either way. EVs are simple, max in attack and speed with an adamant nature. You don't really need a speed increasing nature since you have the speed boost, so adamant nature to increase power is the way to go. Okay, so sample set number 2 is basically the same set as before, but now you have special moves. If your opponent tries to predict you and switch in their physical one on expected physical Sharpedo, you can just blow them right back with a hard-hitting special attack. Item is the same, since I believe it's the best option for Sharpedo. I've had some success with Focus Sash Sharpedo as well, since it will enable you to live 1 attack and not force you to run Protect, but you can give that a go if you like. The moves are Hydro Pump and Dark Pulse for stab, and then Ice Beam for general coverage. As you can see with the EVs, they are pretty much the same as the Fiscally Offensive set, so I'm not going to go into too much detail with them. Before we move on, I just have to mention that Mix Sharpedo is also very viable in Draft League formats, but I don't think it was worthy enough to have a separate slide for basically the same set 3 times. So to compensate for that, we're having 2 build sets this week. Okay, so the first build set is called the Trader, and the motive with this set is just to trade Sharpedo for a Pokemon on your opponent's team. Say you're stuck in team building, you have 5 Pokemon ready that dominates your opponent, and you don't really need another offensive check. This is where this set comes in handy, since you can play super aggressive with it without losing much for the team. Really, the only thing that this Sharpedo is going to do is try to take down an opponent on your opponent's team and remove that from your equation. So the moves are of course Destiny Bond to make your opponent go down with you, Taunt to force your opponent to attack, Whirlpool to trap your opponent in, and then I just threw on Scald because you can burn your opponent. Now I actually don't use Speed Boost on this set, and that's only because I cannot have Speed Boost and Whirlpool on the same set, and I thought Whirlpool was really necessary. The item is a Focus Sash, which might seem a little bit weird to some people since this Sharpedo only wants to die. But it has a very specific role when it comes to trapping more defensive mons. Say you're battling a team with Tapu Fini for example. Tapu Fini is a decently good switching for offensive Sharpedo, so when your opponent tries to switch that in on Sharpedo, maybe predicting Sharpedo to protect, Sharpedo traps Fini in a Whirlpool. Next up, we need to make sure that Tapu Fini doesn't try to use an vicious support move to get itself out of the Whirlpool, so Sharpedo uses Taunt. If Tapu Fini attacked that turn, you will survive with your Focus Sash, and then trade Sharpedo for Tapu Fini next turn with a Destiny Bond. The EVs are maxed in speed with a timid nature to be as fast as humanly possible, and the rest just in special attack. You don't really need IVs in defensive stats since you don't want to accidentally live a hit. Next up we have the defensive Sharpedo. Yes, you heard me right. Defensive Sharpedo. This set takes advantage of the rough skin plus rocky helmet combination. Basically, if your opponent tries to attack you, they will take a lot of damage in return. Haha, yet another set without speed boosts. Why did they even hire me for this job? The moves are Endure, Super Fang, Aqua Jet and Taunt. Super Fang and Taunt are pretty self-explanatory, but the other two moves might seem a little bit weird. I'll go into detail with them now. The creme de la creme with this set is Endure, and the reason we have it is because we want our opponent to take as much damage as possible with recoil. So the idea is to switch in Sharpedo on a fiscally resisted hit and make your opponent take damage from the recoil. Sharpedo will have taken a lot of damage, so in order to make Sharpedo stay around for another turn, you go for Endure and make your opponent take even more recoil. As a last ditch effort, you can go for the Aqua Jet to do a very little amount of damage, and then you go down. But your opponent will not be so healthy at this point. 3 rounds of Rocky Helmet plus Rough Skin coupled with the Aqua Jet? Nah, that gotta hurt. The EVs are maximized in defense and HP to hopefully survive one attack before you go for Endure. Remember, even though it has max defense, it's not bulky at all, so don't try to be adamant and switch in on like a Conkeldurr and expect a survival. Build sets are not of course meant to be brought every battle, but once or twice might do some magic. Don't try these at home, especially if you're underage. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Waiver Wire show. Now, if you want to be a part of the decision for next week's featured Pokemon, there's a link in the description that will guide you to a Strawpoll. The options for next week are Amoonguss, Wishiwashi, Togedemaru, Golurk, Blastoise, Regirock and Machamp. Let's hope for no fuck-ups this time, haha, please don't fire me. If you have any Pokemon that wasn't drafted that you want to be featured on this show, leave them in the comments down below. But anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. I've been your host Strompfel, and I'll see all of you at the same time next week. Goodbye.